Welcome to another episode of Road Adventures with Cycling Men of Leisure. My name is Michael, and across from me, virtually, is my good friend and president, or mayor, or emperor of Debrim Nation, Mr. Adam. Adam, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Hashtag the number one Debrim Nation. Absolutely doing great, and happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy to have you, but you know what I'm even more happy about?
No.
Are you going to ask me why I did the introduction?
Yeah, actually, why did you do the introduction?
Well, I did the introduction because we wanted to flip the script today because we are celebrating.
We are?
Yes, we're celebrating. You going to ask me what we're celebrating?
I have a bourbon in my hand, and I'm ready to celebrate. What are we celebrating?
We are celebrating the completion of our 50th episode. That's right. Cheers.
Can you hear
50 episodes. The last episode that we did marked our 50th episode. So I thought we would have a little celebration, a little party. Obviously, the drinks are already flowing, so that's a good sign. Because quite honestly, it blows my mind that we are at, we're number 51 right now.
Who would have thought?
I know. Can you believe that we've done like 50 hours of this? It just blows my mind.
No, I mean,
you know what's even more impressive? Not only have we produced 50 hours of this, but people have listened to 50 hours of this. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. When we started, you and I both get the same stats. So if you've never done a podcast, you have a launching pad, if you will, which is a hosting platform for the podcast. And I don't care who you use. We use a company called Buzzsprout. No secret there. They're a very famous company, very easy to set up. A lot of tutorials to make it easy. And sure, it takes time. I mean, it took us a lot of time to figure out some of the stuff to get going, but it gives us all kinds of stats. It tells us like how long someone listens for, how many episodes that have been downloaded every time we have a new episode, how many times it's downloaded. Well, then they have these things like achievements, almost like awards, like, hey, you got
That's
10
right.
episodes, and throughout the history, we've always gone to our Facebook page and we've shared it. But because I knew we were recording the show, I've been holding on to the 50. I haven't done anything with it, and it's been killing me. So now, after this airs,
release the hounds.
I can release the hounds and
right.
share the 50th achievement, which, I happen to look at some facts.
Oh, okay. This should be good.
20% of all podcasts never make it past 10,000 downloads, and we've surpassed that.
What percentage was that?
20%.
Okay, so we're ahead of 20% of the podcast out there that started. Okay.
Awesome. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, is that really possible? The reason why is that your outliers are people like the Joe Rogan Experience. He has such a large production that his numbers are so high, and other podcasts that are like Dateline and things like that. They're the outliers that are just so high. But it's just the podcasts like you and I. There are so many people who are starting podcasts with every little thing that you can be like, oh, well, I like to crochet, so I'm starting their crocheting podcast. Well, it takes a very special person to be able to want to listen to a crocheting podcast. I'm not making fun of crocheters. I'm just saying there has to be someone out there who's like, oh, I'm curious about crocheting, and then pick up on the show. And
you got to have a customer base.
Yeah. And I think in full transparency, our customer base happens to be in Georgia. It was never planned that way, but we do have a large...
No. Let me stop you.
Okay.
Because I know what you're saying, but let me just clean that up a little bit. We've got customers listening or listeners. Let's just call them listeners, because they're not purchasing really anything here, except investing their time, which we certainly appreciate. We've had them from all over the world, most of the
Sure.
continents. What you're saying is that if you look at our stats, the state that consistently, episode after episode, has far more listeners
Yes.
listening into us is Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, and usually that and we can actually even pinpoint it down to more in the summer, right around Bragg, and then it kind of goes the opposite. When we did our episode last year of Christmas stuff, Georgia was not number one. There were other states and other territories and areas, but yeah, during the summer we can see that during that around the Bragg ride, which is in June, we do the Big Bragg ride, which is around June. We do have a large listenership and have made many friends. But no, it's not the only basis. I mean, you're the one who
Right.
excites me with listener spotlight and mentioning different countries. And I mean, what I can't believe is within like the first 3 weeks, you're like, I want somebody from,
Africa.
Africa, yeah, and you had it. Somebody was listening in Africa, so
That was
um,
like 3 weeks in. I was like, man, if we get somebody from Africa, this is going to be so awesome. 3 weeks in,
right.
it's like somebody from Africa. It's like, wow, that wasn't as hard as I thought.
the the idea that when we first, first of all, when we first decided to do the podcast, it was like one of those moments where people probably think I'm lying when I tell the story, when I call you and say, are you sitting down? That is 100% true. If you're at home going, I
Absolutely.
wonder if that's true, I swear on everything that we've done, all the time, energy that we put together into this, I promise you, I called them and said, are you sitting down? I got this crazy idea.
And I was in this office,
Yeah.
sitting in this chair, and I was like, yes, I am sitting down. And I was like, oh dear, what are you thinking?
Because truthfully, before that, we would call each other, but it wouldn't be on a regular basis. It would be
Yeah.
like, hey, we're getting ready for a ride, or what are you planning on bringing, or what bourbon
If
are
there
you
was like the
bringing?
Nebraska Michigan game or something, we'd be texting each other, maybe calling,
Yeah.
saying, oh, you know, that
So when
those
I
kind of
call,
things. But yeah,
I,
nothing on a regular basis.
and multiple years, I was like dancing on your grave, and this year I think you might be dancing on mine, but that's not important right now. So I think
Yes. Go
Nebraska might have a
Huskers.
decent chance with your number 15 Patrick Mahomes protege there. So
Whatever
and if
it
no one
takes.
knows what I'm talking about, their quarterback has decided to have a haircut like Patrick Mahomes. He wears number 15. He throws a sidearm. Might get him in
He's
trouble, but it was pretty impressive.
emulating Patrick Mahomes in a
Oh,
big
for
way.
sure.
And you know what? If it works for him, I'm saying go for it,
That
because we beat Colorado last weekend by a pretty decent score. So I'll take it when I can get it.
It was a pretty exciting game to watch. I won't lie. Going up 28 nothing in the half. So I might have to be watching Go Big Red this year because I'm not sure how Go Big Blue is going to be. So, anyways, moving on. So, but no, it's So when we started the show and we said yes, and then we both of us started going down the research path because that's how just both of us are. We might come at it different ways, but both of us are like, well, we're not just going to jump into this. We want to you know, one of the things that was important to both of us, you being in radio before and me being a photographer by trade, was having a high quality product. And
Mm-hmm.
we spent hours and hours figuring out, okay, well, we need an entrance to the show, which is why you hear the woman in the beginning. We hired her, we paid her by the word. Um, and which, by the way, is industry standard if you're not sure about that. But if you're paying someone for voice work, you do pay them either by a job, but mostly you pay them by the word that they
Pay them on
do.
the word. Mm-hmm.
And she turns out she works for NASA. She literally is a rocket scientist who does this on the side, and we call her NASA girl.
That's what she calls herself, actually. That's her
Oh, the
moniker. That's her business moniker for her
okay.
voiceover work. Yeah.
So you and I both, I didn't know that, but
Yeah.
or if I did, I just forgot about it. We've been doing this for 3 years now, but um, so you and I both definitely agreed 100% that if we're going to do it, it needed to be high quality. Which is why about 4, 5, 10 episodes, when our friend Tripp said, "Man, you got this crazy sound," it was killing me because we take a lot of pride in not having any kind of feedback, and sometimes you can't help it because you interview someone. Um, out in the open, you're going to
The
hear different things.
environment dictates a lot of that.
And we learned,
Especially when you're out and about and you can't control it. Like unlike here where you can. Unfortunately, he was hearing it here, and
yeah.
I know it was bothering you, and I had to chuckle and laugh, and I apologize now. I hid it from you, but it was funny because it was driving you so crazy. You're literally going in your equipment while we're on the phone, and you're like pulling cords out and sticking them back in and moving them around. And it was just like sitting here going, "Oh my God, this is driving him crazy."
Oh, it was. I figured out, so some friends at work who listen to the show, which they're very supportive, said, "Man, we don't hear it at all. We don't know what the heck you're talking about." And so then I asked them, because we have some iPads at work, and I said, pull it up on an Apple device, and it turns out it was only happening on the Apple platform that I could find out, and it was only happening on the Apple podcast, and so it was weird. If you went to any pod chasers or anything else, it didn't seem. I mean, it might have been there, but I definitely heard it, and I could only hear it if I had on like AirPods or something where it was just. I mean, just a weird, but it bothered me, and yeah, definitely we tried to
I
fix
mean, it
that.
bothered me too, but it was funny watching you like pull your hair out because you're by far the tech guy here.
Oh yeah.
And what was funny is we actually had an argument about that because I generally listen to things through Spotify, and I was like, "Dude, I'm listening." And you're like, "Well, put iPod, AirPods on and things like." And I was doing it. It's like I don't hear any background noise at all. Now I wasn't going to call Trip a liar or anything, but I wasn't hearing it.
Trip,
So
it sounds like he's completely calling you a liar,
no.
buddy. And I appreciate your support. And no, I'm just kidding. Trip, and see, the problem is Trip said to me behind the scenes that he listens in his car, and it was really evident, I guess, in the car where when he was driving that he could definitely hear it, and I could see that maybe the car subwoofers or speakers or whatever. I don't know if subwoofers are still a thing in a car. I guess they are if you don't want them to be, but the different frequency, I bet you that's where he was hearing it. So um, I listen on my podcast with headphones on. So a car isn't fancy enough to be able to to be able to hook that up. So, um, but that's by choice because I like to travel. But the one thing that I always think about going down memory lane with this show is I won't. We said it once before, but 12 times. 12 times.
We
That's
were so,
I
starting
don't
out in
remember
this,
doing it 12 times. Go ahead.
starting out on this, and I'll explain the 12 times for the people who may not have heard this, but starting out on this thing, like he said, we did research on, what kind of equipment we needed that was going to be the best. And we both made some changes to the rooms that we're in and all this kind of stuff to get the best quality. And we did research on other podcasts to find out, how you do this and all of that type of thing. Well, our first podcast, we did it. Sat down just like we're doing now, did it. And we thought, well, you know what? That wasn't quite good enough. So we'll do it again. We wound up recording that thing 12 times. And I'm not lying.
That's 100%
12
true.
times before we got
100%
it to where
true.
both you and I were like, yeah, that's not bad. But
You
you know
know
what
what
go ahead.
I was going to say, you know what I kind of, if anyone, depending on what age you are listening to the show, if you ever had your own answering machine and, and
Yes,
when you
old school.
decided that you wanted to be like, hey, it's Adam, and I'm not home right now. Please leave a message. And then, depending on the style of your answering machine, if you came back from being gone for a while and you hit play and it played your own message, it was like that cringing feeling. You're like, oh my gosh, or now even with your own voicemail, on your cell phone, if you don't have the one that's automatically uh, is not available right now. But if you have your own, you're like, hey, it's whatever, thanks, hey, thanks for calling, blah blah blah. And then you play it. Even then, you get that feeling, and I think that's what it was for both of us. Like we played it, we're like, ooh. So there was that naturalization of being on a microphone, and it's not normal. I mean, it's something you do. I mean, your daughter knocked it out of the park. I mean, first take, we did
Hmm.
the confetti experience with her, and and about the bear, and she knocked it out of the park. Wasn't uncomfortable at all.
And the funny thing is I had been in radio for several years, but it's still different.
Yeah,
It's still different. But that taught us an important thing. And this is the beauty of it. I mean, this podcast, like our cycling, is a journey.
yeah,
And we've learned so much, and we're still learning. I mean, what was beautiful is after we did that 12 times and we finally settled, it's like, yes, we can tolerate this. Since that time, we've just said, you know what? With very few exceptions, do we ever re-record anything? We just keep it conversational. If we, you know, flub up or mess up or whatever, we just pick ourselves up and go. And I think that's really what's helped make this show, interesting, or at least I hope, is
yeah.
because you and I are just having a conversation. We're not, oh wait, that didn't sound right. We'll do a second take or a third take. What you hear is what we're producing.
And I think that's 100% true. I mean, if you've ever hung out with me in person, you know that I'll slip in what is formerly known as foul language. But we agreed that we would keep the show clean, and so even that the only jokes I make is I might use the beep where I would normally say something like if someone like when we do rants of dissatisfaction. And if you've never heard that, it's just our way of being like, this is our way of releasing some
When we
stress
need to
about
vent.
dumb stuff to us in America. I mean, it doesn't have to be America. Actually, it could be anywhere. But um, like your Christmas lights that are still on in May. I mean, that's just frustrating stuff. I mean, so we would just stuff like that. But even then, I'm like, yeah, you big, hit the mute button or the censor button. But even then, I'm learning different ways to communicate and learning
Mm-hmm.
different. I just remember how much time we put in editing in the very beginning. Like you
Oh
said,
yeah.
it was driving me nuts. I'm pulling cords out and literally there really is a lot of cords. He's not lying. There's microphone cords and headphones and USB Cs and all kinds of things. And yeah, it was bothering me. But I just remember editing the first show and then cutting this and then trying to hit the post and trying to do um, putting it in software and just getting it just perfect. And now the last episode that we did, I think literally we spent after recording it maybe 5-10 minutes matching up NASA Girl and matching up the end, making sure the transition sounds good. But we've built a model where the model works and we know what to do and
Mm-hmm.
we know what to listen for and the experience. So you're right. It's definitely I think you said it absolutely the best, which is this is a learning curve, learning process, and um, 50 episodes to one podcast may not be a lot, but what you and I have decided to do is not have like 3-minute episodes. We've seen other podcasts
Mm-hmm.
that have like episode 265, and
We
then
ran
we'll
into
like,
one just the other day when we were looking,
yep.
where they don't do it on a regular basis. They may do, two episodes back to back, days, or they might do three in a row, but they're anywhere between 4 and 10 minutes long. So,
Yeah, I mean, there is a new thing called Snapcast, which is basically, and I recommended this to a good friend of ours, Franklin Johnson.
yeah.
Um, so they put out a monthly newsletter called Bragging Rights. If you've ever done one of their rides, you pretty much, I think you basically get on the list. I think that's how you would do
Yeah.
it. And so, and I called him and I said, "Man, I'm like, you gotta please understand that they're doing this thing where they call them Snapcasts. They're 4 or 5 minute shows. Basically, you give an overview of the newsletter because a lot of people don't have time to read. I mean, they get so many emails. The last thing they want to do is like another email, delete, and they won't even look at it. And so he's kind of looking at that, what to do, and he's in the process of getting a new executive director for his stateside rides,
U.S.
U.S. rides, and so I think that's going to be part of it. But so yeah, I mean, you and I chose to do just full episodes, and so to have 50 full episodes of either content, and we've come a long way. Where the other thing that I think I was going down memory lane is, in the beginning you and I shared this Apple file back and forth where we had ideas for shows, and what could we talk about? And I went into it with the idea of saying, okay, we're gonna talk an hour about packing for Ragbri. And it was you that opened my mind to be like, but what if you don't care about Ragbri? What if you don't care about packing? Have we just lost a listener? And so you were the one who said, "Hey, let's." And I'll give full credit where credit is due. I mean, you don't wear it to brim, but that's okay. Well, we still love you, buddy. But you were the one who said, we need to do different segments and different.
Mhm.
First, it was different segments. Um, and then you came up with the idea of hey, why don't we, spotlight, if you will. We call it listener spotlight, but spotlight, different new areas where people are listening, or maybe if it's not new, an area that we haven't mentioned before. And with your history, and for those who don't know, Michael started his life off was going to be a teacher, and that was kind of one of those things that happened where you decided to do something different. Which, by the way, I never thought I would be doing what I'm doing. So it's just you never know where
This
you're
is
going
all
to
part
end
of
up.
life, man. Yeah.
Exactly. So your history on the listener spotlight, we get so many compliments, and and even the guy Jeff who helped us with the weather in Iowa, my employee, he's more of a friend, but still, I mean, he says, "Oh man, I loved your last." He came to me at work on Monday, and he said, "I loved your last episode." And that's a high for me when someone says that, like when you and I meet people in the public and
Hmm.
and say, "Oh, I listen to your show." And like when we were at Ragbri 50th anniversary, our 50th route announcement party, and we had those Cycling Men of Leisure sweatshirts, which, by the way, it was 0 degrees out. We needed some sort of warm clothes.
Oh, it was cold.
And the guy out of nowhere goes, "Oh, I listen to your show, and I love what you're doing. Keep doing it." We didn't know that guy from nothing. I mean, and so it was things like that. It was that was kind of exciting. Little pieces to make you. It's like a boss telling an employee, "You're doing a great job." If you tell your employees that once in a while, they're like, "Oh, well, thanks a lot." Appreciate you
Oh yeah.
noticing. And so same thing for us. But yeah, 12 times we record. I remember we recorded it, and then we would listen to it, and then we were
Yeah, we
working.
recorded the whole thing and then listened to the whole thing, and
Yeah,
it took us hours. And
and
the
then
other
we had
thing
to
I was
wait for it
thinking
to
back
process.
on,
Go ahead.
the other thing I was thinking back on is early on we didn't know how long these things would take.
Yeah,
So when we decided to do it, that first 3 weeks or so, we busted out like 3 episodes
yeah,
because we didn't know, we didn't want to fall behind, and we wanted to keep things on cadence, and we didn't know if we were going to be able to do every other week, certainly starting out. So we wanted to have some content in the can, so to speak, so that if we fell behind, we had something to put in there. And what's ironic, and I don't know if you've thought about this, we have an episode that we recorded, you know, a, back when we started, that we've never played,
I know. What's funny is so
which is fine, and we're not gonna play it.
no,
Um,
no,
I mean, it was a
because
decent episode and it had good content. What we'll do is, if we need some new ideas, we'll take that content, refresh it, and do a new show. But
you know
yeah,
what we do? You and I privately listen to it and be like, "Oh, that was horrible," and then
oh,
record it. So I'm
some
sure,
night this winter when it's freezing up there
yeah,
and I don't have anything to do, we're gonna pour ourselves something to drink,
yeah,
and we will sit and listen to that, and we can
and
get
we'll
a good
laugh.
laugh at ourselves.
Yeah, we'll laugh because now I feel. I mean, because even people who meet me and they're like, "Oh, you sound just like the guy in the podcast." I'm like, "Well, that's good because it's me." But um, it, it is more natural now. Now I, flip down the microphone. I mean, I've done three equipment changes since we started. I started with like a little travel piece, and then I got a smaller board, and then um, technology changes, and we figured we were going to actually go somewhere with this thing. And so I have a larger board. And of course, you saw it when you were here
Mm-hmm.
recently. It's got all kinds of toys on it, and you can do all kinds of crazy stuff.
Oh,
But
they've heard your toys.
oh, I know they have. So I mean, you can't go wrong with a little rim shot there, a little
Oh, you
sad.
can go very wrong. Yes.
All right, that's enough. But so yeah, I mean, camera changes, board changes. microphones for sure, and this is the one that I keep coming back to. This Shure SMB7. It's my favorite.
It's
But
your go-to.
oh yeah, I mean I got others here. I got I got this
You
one
got the
here.
red, the blue, the black. They're all color-coded.
I got this one here. This Samsung, but this Sure, I'm definitely like, you just different equipment changes. You
Mm-hmm.
realize you're going to stick with it, and so I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So I think there's enough stuff for us to listen to. We can tell based upon when the show comes out, the listenership. It's just like anything else; it peaks at first and then falls off, but. Then there'll be a random day where I'll look at the numbers and be like, "Holy cow! We had like 100
Yeah.
people, listen to different episodes or whatever." So, um, but yes, I do know about that show, and I do know that we talked about like stats and stuff like that of different
Yeah,
kinds
like
of gyms.
cycling rider stats and
Yeah,
who's riding and stuff like that. We'll
probably probably it's
we'll pull
changed
that
by now.
information out, refresh it, and redo it. But it's funny you'd mentioned Maya, my daughter, and confetti, and I'm sitting here, and if you look, if for the people not just listening, I apologize, but if you look behind my shoulder, right here is confetti
Oh yes,
on the shelf watching. So I thought that was funny. I didn't realize he was up there, and it's like
does she like
so.
move him around? So
Sometimes it gets moved around, and it was like, oh, okay, it's right there. So,
yeah,
but
that,
yeah,
that that was an
we've
episode in your garage.
we've done an episode in my garage. We've done an episode at Disney
Yeah, we have
at the resort at Disney. We did an episode in a lobby of a Comfort Inn
hotel.
or Holiday Inn and Suites, or I don't know, in Orlando.
Yeah, here's a little secret. That was the first time we ever interviewed Franklin
Yes, it is.
Johnson. And so
And
we
we did it,
apologized
and
to him
we
because we're like, dude, we're in a lobby right now because they threw us out of our room. So
so we've recorded some interesting places, and obviously along the way we've interviewed ride directors and paramedics, EMTs, things like that. But it's
you
it's
remember the
uh, it's
show we
interesting.
tried to record at Bourbon Country Burn the first year? It was outside, and we
And the
thought,
wind was blowing just a
we
little
thought,
bit, and
and we
all
thought
you
it
could
wasn't
hear
going to be
was
that
like,
bad until we got back to the studio, and it was like, ooh, that's brutal. And so what we did is we kind of just said, okay, what do we talk about? And we re-recorded it and we
we
kind of
created it. Yeah.
recreated it. So yeah, but it was not good. Wind didn't sound that bad when we were recording
No,
it. We had headphones on, but then when we played it later, we were like, oof, not
our
good.
microphones were just sensitive enough that it picked it up really bad, and we kind of sounded like we were one of those guys on the Weather Channel, in the hurricane, doing the broadcast right there from the beach as the waves are crashing in and the wind is blowing.
I've got my rain jacket on. The wind's 100, and then get hit by a stop sign in the face.
Yeah,
I always love those. Like, what
I
are you
don't think
doing
the
out
heavy
there,
stuff's
dude?
coming down for a while. Yeah. So yeah,
uh,
and I mean, looking back, we've interviewed Matt Phippen
yeah,
up in
yeah.
Ragbri, and Franklin Johnson and Bragg, and Neil up at Shoreline. Just been a lot of people that we've been able to get on the show and talk about their experiences and cycling. So it's been awesome.
And we started the Cycling Women of Leisure series, and I'm excited because
Mm,
we're
good
bringing that
news.
back. We're bringing that back. We've got a couple of
Well,
Cycling Women of
it
Leisure.
never really went away, but we just haven't done one in a while.
That's
And
true.
there's a chance, and I'm not going to get I'm going to pace myself, but we've got one ready to go. So I
Yep.
believe our next episode we're going to have the women of or the Cycling Women of Leisure series.
Yep.
Will be our next, and then I think later on this week we're going to be talking to somebody else that will be making another one of those episodes. So it should be fun. We can highlight
Supposed
the ladies of cycling.
supposed to be. Let's
Yeah,
hope. I mean, one I can guarantee you happened.
it,
I will hope.
it's in
I
the
will hope.
can.
That's right. We got that one
So
ready, and so But
It'll be fun. We'll maybe briefly talk about it later. But no, we've interviewed some great people. We've had some great discussions. Personally, I know I've had a great time on here. Um, and thank you to everybody out there who takes the time, whatever they're doing, to listen or to watch us or to pay any attention to us whatsoever. Because it just
and
impresses me that they do.
and we especially want to thank those who wear the brim. Oh no, just
Uh,
kidding. Um, on a more serious note, uh, I would agree with that. I'll mirror what you said because anytime that I'm in my personal life and someone says, "Hey, because I've shared the show with friends, I've shared the show with
mm-hmm.
non-cyclist friends, and I think at first someone who doesn't care about cycling listens. If they know us, they listen, just because they know us, and then because we've tried to mix in different things other than cycling, which is the basis is cycling, but different. We go to distilleries a lot. Look behind me if you're watching on YouTube. That's not a 3D image. It's not a hologram, but um, it's the memories, the people we've met, and you know, I'll just say that yes, it's been fun, and at times I'm always nervous that we're not going to meet the 2 week mark, and so there are some times where life gets in the way where you think, well, 14 days, you can't just bust out an episode. Well, we could, but we like to try our best to have some good content, and so
Yeah.
figuring something out that people would like to listen to, or and then there's the humor that comes along the way. If people think that is just for the show, that's just us in person. If
That
you're
is
if you know us,
us.
you already are laughing. But if you don't know us in person, that's just, I mean, I'll
It
say
gets back
dumb
to that whole
stuff.
thing. We're just having a conversation. This is like any type of conversation we would have, whether we were on
Yeah.
the phone, we were in person, we're at a ride, we're not at a ride, we're at a distillery or whatever. That's just us. We take jabs at each other, we banter with each other. I mean, that's just our relationship. So
And one of my favorite pastimes is finding someone who is just like very monotone, and then I'll purposely say, like, you mean like when you were in prison? And obviously you were never in prison, you work for the government. Obviously that's nothing that's ever happened, and um but the looks that we get from people are like, they'll look up and be like, "You were in prison?" And it makes me so happy, and I just laugh because I know that they're like, I'm like, life is not that serious. You gotta relax. I mean, so it's always fun for me to do that slapstick humor, and so we bring that in the show. And a lot of people mention to me that they like that, like, "Oh, I like how you guys do that for the show." I'm like, it's not
yeah,
for the
it's
show.
it's
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 just,
not acting. It's just the way we are. But what's funny about that is you'll bring up when you'll say, oh, well, it's like, glad you're out of prison or something, or does this, food remind you of when you were in prison? And then I'll just play right into it. And I say, you know what? My first stint, the food was really good, but that last stint, this is horrible. Or, well, these showers are like what they had on cell block C, and yeah, it's funny to like watch people's reaction kind of out of the corner of your eye when they're like, are these guys serious or are they joking or what's the deal? So
there's nothing better to me when we go some ride to one of the rides, and they have a shower truck, and there's like 9 stalls within the semi trailer, and I can just tell, like you're like 7 down from me or whatever. And I'm like, man, this is like when we were in prison. And then you fire right back with, I don't know, man. At least there's hot water here. And then there's 5 people in between us. And they're thinking to themselves, what the heck are them boys talking about? um,
good
well,
times.
good times. Glad to celebrate.
Yes, good. Congratulations on 50, sir. And let's go for another 50. Kind of having
I,
fun.
absolutely.
Now, I think we can move on. We've
Yeah,
done
but
our celebratory drink here and that type of thing because I'm excited to talk a little bit about our
listener spotlight.
way to pick up the prompt. Good job.
Yeah, listen, it's not my first
No.
rodeo. I got 50 in the tank, baby.
Yes, last episode's listener spotlight. Now, you told me somebody has written in with a potential answer.
That is correct. Now, my question for you is, would you like to do our normal where
Well,
you give the clues and then I give you his guess? Or would you like a guess and then give the clues?
for this one, I will do the clues,
Okay.
and then you can give the guess from our listener. Okay.
Copied.
The clues were as follows. This community began as a Native American settlement, and the name is derived from the indigenous people who live there. It was settled mostly by German, Scots, Irish farmers in the mid 1800s, and the town was incorporated in the 1880s. The early economy was based around textile mills. The railroad arrived in this community in the late 1880s, which provided them direct access to the markets of Atlanta and became a central focus of the community. One central attraction of this community is a 100-plus-year-old bridge. And the town is connected to the U.S.'s recognition of the Republic of Texas. There you go.
Well, our good friend and team member, by the way,
Okay, cool.
Ed, has
Okay, awesome.
texted me.
So he thinks he knows.
Yeah, I got this on Monday.
Bold. That's bold. Anyway, go ahead.
He says, sounds like listener spotlight might be my town.
Oh,
Wexhaw, named after the Wexhaw Indians, settled by the German Scots. Bridge over railroad tracks in center of town, built in the 1900s. Textiles were a major industry, and the birthplace of Andrew Jackson, leader of the annexation of Texas.
Well, Ed,
How has Ed done?
Ed, you get double gold stars because this week's answer is Wexhaw, North Carolina.
Wow, look at that. Hold on a second. I got to go to a different page.
Good job, Ed.
Wow. I mean, I'm not surprised. Ed's a genius.
Well, yeah. And I'll tell you how you came up with this. The community was originally named Wasaki.
Okay.
But it later became known as Wexhaw, which was a group from that tribe. It was primarily settled by German and Scotch-Irish farmers in the 1880s. The railroad arrived. The tracks, the reason why I had said it was a central focus of the community, they laid the railroad tracks right down the middle of town. That's how important the railroad was to them. The one central attraction that I mentioned was the 100-plus-year-old bridge, which was built over the railroad tracks in 1888. And in 1940, it was changed to a pedestrian-only bridge. And so apparently the big thing is for tourists, you can go up there and if you catch it at the right time, you can stand on the bridge as the train goes through town and underneath you. And the town was connected to the U.S.'s recognition of the Republic of Texas. Although disputed, Wexhaw is the birthplace of our 7th president, Andrew Jackson. One of his final acts as president was to officially recognize the Republic of Texas. He did not have anything to do with the annexation of Texas, but he did, as a representative of our government, recognize the Republic of Texas. Texas was not annexed until James K. Polk, who I believe was our 11th president. So,
Oh, what a guy.
there you remember Poke. I mean,
Oh yeah,
yeah. So
Ed.
there you have it.
Well, thank you, listeners of Wexhaw. Thank you, all listeners, but this time, thank you, Wexhaw.
One other thing I want to do is I want to give a shout out because we had another first on our listeners. We actually had someone listening from Hong Kong. So
Wow,
add that one to the big board.
is that legal?
You know, that is kind of, Chinese,
I was
semi-Chinese
going to say,
territory nowadays. Now that the Brits gave it up, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe the government censors weren't watching that day, and someone got through. So, but thank you, whoever's listening in Hong Kong. We appreciate it.
no, we definitely appreciate it. I only said it was illegal because, you know, they've opened up their own Starbucks and the logo is so similar. And I mean, there's just so many stories of things that they're doing over there. So it's just crazy. So I thought, is that really illegal? But hey, if we got
You
through,
know, Hong Kong is Chinese territory. It's like Chinese light.
yeah,
It's like you got the Chinese government overseeing you, but because the British were there, they've kind of been hardcore. I mean, they've kind of not been hardcore on them. So thank you, appreciate it.
absolutely. I love it. I love when we get new areas. It's always amazing when we click on those stats like we were talking about before, and you can see like certain percentages of countries. And as you can actually click on every episode we've ever had, and then look at like the countries, and the percentages are pretty neat. I mean, some of the percentages overseas are increasing, and that's kind of cool to see. So I would
I,
like to
I
think.
think
Go ahead.
I think we need to take our episode and find out what we sound like and translate it to French or Chinese or something. I think that'd be fun.
So
Another thing to do on a cold winter night. We'll sit around and listen to our episodes in a foreign language with the translation on.
I don't know how I would sound like,
Well,
you
we
know.
can find out.
Remember in Buzz Lightyear when they switched him to the Spanish mode?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I've never asked you this before.
Yeah.
Besides listening to our show for, you know, checking its content and creativity and ideas, do you listen to podcasts in your personal life? I don't know that.
I do on occasion. It's nothing I listen to on a regular basis.
Gotcha.
I'll occasionally go out there and just do some poking around and go, oh, this sounds interesting. That sounds interesting. So I'm a sporadic podcast listener. I'm not like one of those hardcore people that do it a lot. Now, if I was still driving to an office every morning,
Yeah.
I would probably be doing it. But since my commute is 13 stairs, I don't really have the time. So yeah,
Every day I listen to the podcast on the way back and forth to work. I got about a 20-minute drive to work, and I could remote. And there are times that if it's convenient for me, I'll remote. Like if I got someone come and look at the fridge or a delivery or something. But I prefer to be on property. And so it's about 22 minutes from my doorstep through via Starbucks to via my office. And I can usually on my way in and way home, I can get an episode done. The reason why I was asking if you listen to podcasts is depending on the show. I know your wife listens to true crime. I don't think you do, right?
no.
No. But some of the true crime narrators read like this, and then the guy came, and then all of the evidence. I can't take it, so I go like 1.25 speed, like, and then he came and got the episode, and we got the evidence, and then they were like,
Nivens was picked up and taken back to headquarters. Yeah.
so I just remember when you and I were first doing the show, we found all those buttons where we could change our voice, and I remember us listening to ourselves at like 2 speed, like, yeah, blah, blah, and then when you laugh, like, so I was just curious if like in your personal life, because there are shows that I that I do like to listen to. I listen to true crime, but I also like investing podcasts if it's
Oh yeah.
informative, like investing for beginners or whatever, and um, figuring out some of the things. Even those narrators, I'm like, dude, come on. Either I'm just a little bit advanced, but past a beginner. I mean, and so I'm like, yeah, I know that,
You're
and
like,
then I
come
hit,
on, come on,
exactly.
get me to the stuff I need.
I always wonder like what speed someone listens to us at. So if you're out there and you listen to us at anything other than a 1 speed on a regular basis, I would love to hear it. I mean, because the show is recorded at single speed with the idea of the jokes and the punchlines and everything else at single speed. So, I just out of curiosity, if you're out there and you're a listener and you listen at a different speed, I would love to. I'd love to know. I was thinking about that because I am a true crime listener. Not
Maybe
today.
they listen to us really slowly.
Now, listen, I don't want to be offensive, but that would be torture. So,
They got a
but
lot of extra time on their hands, let me tell you.
so I'm listening to this show now called the Piketon Massacre. It's about this murder in Ohio, where one family wiped out the other, and they don't need me to advertise
Who
for them. They're
listens to this? Oh my
Oh, hold
gosh.
on a second. They don't need me to advertise for them. Trust me, they're doing just fine. But um, those narrators are definitely. I work out a lot now, and so it's about an hour workout every morning, and the episodes are about 40 minutes long. But there's commercials, but the commercials are worth it because I can listen at 2 speed. And it's like Ryan Seacrest in my ear this morning about some pomegranate juice. He's like, "Do you listen to this? Do you drink this?" And then when the show comes back on, I put it at regular speed. So just got me wondering, got me thinking if
No, I don't.
no the uh the 13 stairs that you have, you wouldn't get much
Yes.
of a show recorded. So
Yeah, it would take me 6 months to listen to a 20-minute podcast. So, yeah.
yeah, this is true. This is true. But um
All
no,
right.
it's just something I was curious about.
No, that's cool. Do we have time? Are we good on time?
Yeah,
Do we want to
we're
go
good.
into the what I've deemed the 13 versus 6 discussion, which you don't know anything about, but you can pretend like you do.
Oh yes, the 13 versus 6.
Which you, I make up these names for things and then I deliberately don't tell Adam, even though we've talked about this. I just didn't have a title to it. And then he's like, yeah, let's talk about that.
My favorite is when you talk about people from history and you're like, and then it was James Gallagher, and I'm like, yeah, I know James.
Oh
I
yeah, he was a good
I had
one.
no
Yeah.
idea. So,
What the heck is this guy talking about? No, we had talked about it. Last episode, I had talked about we had a product review and it was on my carbon tires, my carbon wheels.
oh yeah.
And we had talked about discussing a little bit about carbon versus aluminum because I know there's a lot of people out there that doesn't really understand what's the difference. Is there really an advantage? So I thought we could spend a couple of minutes just discussing that.
1300 versus 600. Got
No.
it.
Okay. You got to memorize what I tell you because if you just throw out random numbers, it doesn't work.
Mm.
We're going to it. I've entitled this section 13 versus 6.
Yeah, 1300 versus 600.
And you know how I came up with this?
Hold on a
We're
second. Let me
talking about aluminum versus carbon. And if you look on the atomic scale, aluminum is 13, carbon is 6. So 13 versus 6 is where I got it.
Wow, really?
Yes. The atomic number of aluminum is 13, atomic number of carbon is 6. So we're going to have a discussion of 13 versus 6, aluminum versus carbon.
Wow.
Okay, it was a
I'm
slow
impressed.
day at work yesterday. Okay, no.
I'm like, did you just know that, or did you have to like look that up?
Well, everybody knows the atomic numbers, don't you?
Well, I know like the element chart of it, like
Nobody
gold.
knows that. Come on. I mean, there's people that know it, but not like, astrophysicists, people in hard sciences are going to know that. But anyway, let's talk about wheel sets.
Okay.
I did, for years, I'd ridden on aluminum. I just recently started doing carbon. I know for several years you've ridden on carbon tires. But what is the difference and does it really matter is kind of what I wanted to discuss.
Okay.
I did some research and found out that in recreational cyclists, only about 10 to 20% of recreational cyclists use carbon wheel sets. I think that's about right when we're out there. Most of what you see is aluminum. Obviously, on the professional side of things, obviously everybody's using carbon there, but for recreational, only 10 to 20% are out there using carbon wheel sets. Aluminum, since the 80s, rims have been made with aluminum alloys. Again, that was a step up from the old steel wheels that they used to have. There was a lot of advantages to that. In the I think around 1998, carbon fiber wheels were introduced. And of course, the leading group that was, promoting those were the professional cyclists. Now, when you look at aluminum wheels, there's some advantages. The big one that will immediately come to everybody's mind, and if I ask you, you could probably tell me, the big advantage of aluminum is going to be the cost.
Yeah.
They are way more affordable than the carbon.
25
They're,
bucks in the middle of
well,
Georgia. When you break your carbon wheel, you can find one.
if you're lucky.
I was lucky.
You were very lucky. They're generally half the price, if not more, half the price, if not a little less than carbon wheels. With aluminum, the aluminum is going to flex more, which is going to offer you a more comfortable ride. So there's a lot of advantages there. It's going to absorb the shock better and also vibrations better. So with aluminum, it's going to be basically a more comfortable ride overall when you look at it from that point of view. And here's a good one for you. Aluminum is easily repairable or replaceable. And we found that out in Georgia. Would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree with that.
Because when you had a blowout in Georgia and it blew out that chunk of that carbon wheel, there was no way in that town of, I don't know what, maybe 15,000, 10, 15,000, you were going to be able to find a carbon replacement for that wheel. That just wasn't really an option. And quite honestly, the mechanics wouldn't have had one. Now, I would bet you, as good as the mechanics are on Bragg, is he could have probably gotten one for you the next morning before the ride. I'm just guessing here, but he, he's got a shop down the road. I think he could have probably got you one. It would have been a lot more costly and it would have been a lot more time consuming to do. So the aluminum is obviously going to be more easily repairable. You can turn it to its original shape if it gets a little bent out. Finding those replacements are much easier. And more reliable. Aluminum tends to be a little bit more reliable because they are less likely to break. If you would have had your accident, and again, the tire blew out and it blew out a chunk of the carbon, if you would have had that on an aluminum wheel set, you wouldn't have had a catastrophic failure, in my opinion, I don't think.
I
mean, there might have been a little bit of damage, but I think we could have taken that wheel and repaired it, and I think you'd have still been able to ride on it.
I completely agree.
Now,
I destroyed it.
You did destroy it, but you did it in fine style, sir. So
right. I didn't
kudos
fall.
to you.
Exactly.
And you didn't fall. Well, it's good because if you would have fell, your head would have been crushed by traffic. So
it's not important.
it was just some cars. Now, there is some disadvantages with the aluminum. They're going to be slightly heavier because aluminum is a more dense material. This is going to cause them to be a little bit slower. The flexibility, I said, is an advantage. They're going to flex a little bit more. They're going to absorb that shock, but it also makes them less responsive because they do have more give in them when you're trying to make sudden moves, sudden changes, things like that. That flex, you've got to compensate for that flex before you actually get a reaction from the bicycle. And they're going to be really less efficient. The extra weight and the flexibility makes riding them less effective or less efficient. It's going to require more energy and stamina compared with the carbon. So there's a lot of advantages to keeping your aluminum wheel set. But on the carbon side, basically, for those who don't know, carbon is just a carbon fiber reinforced with a polymer, and the advantages are going to be that they're going to be stiffer. So what that's going to do for you is it's going to result in sharper steering. It's going to be more responsive. So if you're out there and you're gunning and you need to immediately get out of this lane or dodge this or dodge that, your carbon tires are going to react better for you, or carbon wheels. Speed and acceleration, I think, I told you that was one of the big things that I found, is that I noticed a difference in the speed and the acceleration that I could feel, because of you can just spin faster because of the power transfer. They're better aerodynamically. They're better aerodynamic. I will say that if you get them deep enough, there's a little disadvantage there if the wind's blowing, because if you're not used to it, you can kind of feel that sailboat effect going there. But they maintain their shape better. They're going to be less likely to deform slightly, lose their shape. But there again, on the aluminum, if you get a little wobble or something, you can easily fix that. In efficiency, they're lighter, they're stiffer. It's going to take less energy for you to use them. So those are the advantages. The disadvantages are going to be cost. I just bought a set. They're pricey. Durability, carbon is going to be more brittle. You've ran into the case there. I think where you'll see a lot of the carbon makers will have some kind of road guarantee, meaning that if there's some kind of catastrophic accident, where you just weren't being stupid or whatever, they'll replace your carbon wheels, not for free, but they'll give you a discount, that kind of thing. So
That's what happened to me when we were in
yeah.
Georgia.
So I just want people to kind of understand there's a payoff there and there's a difference, because I know I got in a discussion with somebody on the last ride in Michigan about, what's, why carbon and that type of thing. So I just wanted people to kind of understand that carbon has a lot of advantages if you want to pay the money for it, but those advantages come with a cost. You're going to be a little faster. You're going to take a little less energy. You're going to be a little lighter. But if you have some kind of accident like you had, things of that nature, a lot harder to repair. Oh, it's almost impossible to repair, a lot harder to replace, and things like that. So
So on
I
top of
just,
that, you and I decided to go with a company that's from Australia,
mhm.
and I mean, we advance in technology, we advance in everything, but then again, the additional delay of the shipping, additional delay of the production, additional delay of everything. I literally ordered my replacement rim the night that it happened. I So June 8th, 9th, whatever, 7th.
Mhm.
I didn't have that until the end of July. I mean, it was a month and a half later. And so that's it could be a disadvantage. Um, Now, if you're indispensable made of money, I guess you could buy two pair and have a backup. But I mean, realistically, that's not really what we can all do. I will tell you that, full transparency, when I bought my first carbon wheels, the wheels that I actually destroyed, I had been told by friends that, oh yeah, it's a big difference, it's a big difference, it's a big difference. And I didn't doubt it, but I was kind of questioning whether the performance would be that big of a difference. And so installed them, and in the beginning I'm like, "Oh yeah." And then I just had them for so long that I just kind of like became accustomed to them, or became used to that with my bike, and that's how it felt. And like you said, minus a
Sure.
side wind because of the 50 millimeter wall, of the rim. A side wind is one of those interesting things where you better be holding onto the handlebar pretty
Oh
good,
yeah.
because um but then when I destroyed the rim, or when it destroyed itself, and
When
I
the
got
road destroyed your rim.
when the incident happened, boom, boom, boom. Um, I was very thankful to get the aluminum rim, but I must tell you, when we were leaving town that day, which was some of the biggest elevation for the entire Ryder Bragg, I'm like, oh, I know a part of it was in my mind. I'm willing to admit that a part of it
Mhm.
was in
Oh
my
yeah.
mind. But the other part that wasn't in my mind was physically the additional amount of inertia that I had to put out to climb the hills like that I had done the day before, um, and on top of all of that, when I did get the new wheel in, the next day I did that one hell of a ride. I did a century. Not being on the bike for 40 something days, I went out and did a century, and I mean, I felt on fire. I was like, it was a huge difference to have that carbon wheel back. So, definitely think there's an advantage. Is there a cost? Yeah, there's a cost. I mean,
Sure.
um, and then, depending on if you're just riding around the neighborhood, you're not really going to see a big advantage. But if you're doing long distance rides or performance rides and you're trying to get something faster, I'm not a big speed guy, but could I tell for a long distance ride? Absolutely. I mean, definitely huge help. So that's interesting. I appreciate the 13.6 wink wink explanation. So
Yeah, I had somebody ask me, and then they kind of talked about it. Well, maybe I should get carbon, and a lot of people don't understand kind of the difference. I think they look at it as, well, professional cyclists use it. It's going to be lighter. It's going to be faster, but there is some downside. So people need to understand what both the pros and the cons are of both of these before you go out and lay out, $1,500, $2,000 plus for these type of wheel sets. So I thought it might
I'm
be
still
interesting
waiting for
to.
you to adjust my derailleur while I'm going down the road. Like I see in the pros where the mechanic leans out the back window and
I'll just lean off my bike and adjust your derailleur, and then if you have any scrapes or anything, I'll patch those up too along the way, just like the pros do with the medical vehicle. So
I want you to stand there with extra wheels next time I get a flat so I can just go choo choo goodbye. Next. So
no, you know
um
what? We'll just do like the professionals do. The car is not available. I'm just going to hand you my bike. You just take my bike and ride, and I'll take care and figure out how to fix your bike. How about that?
I
Because
don't
that's what
know.
they do in the pro circuit. If your car is not anywhere around and you're like one of the lead riders for your team, one of the team members just gives up, one of the domestiques just give up their bike, and you chug on down the road. So
I don't know what's wrong with that. I'll ride your Italian stallion, buddy. Just you fix the noble steed for me if you don't mind.
yeah, I'll take
Um
care of it, man. Next time, you just take my ride, and as long as I get a couple pictures of you on the Bianchi, I'll be happy.
Earlier, before we get to our since we've kind of gone a little bit long here, before we get to our next listener spotlight, we were going down memory lane and we totally missed something. I mean, the whole fact that in 2024 we decided to take the show to YouTube in a video form, and we totally just kind of
Yeah,
skipped that. And so, before we left the show, I wanted to make sure that if if you like to listen to us and you're like, wonder what those guys look like, or wonder what those guys do or talk about, you can watch us on YouTube, or
that's
you
right.
can listen and watch and listen. I mean, we a lot of people do that. Which is interesting to me, that they do, and I appreciate that they do. By the way, but we hear that a lot, that people either are in their car and they listen and they go back and watch us later.
Yeah,
So
and watching us has some advantages because we often speak of what's in our backgrounds. Our backgrounds are in fact our offices, our home offices. It's not 3D. He has his collection of mini bottles of fine bourbon. I've got a Mod Podge, my camera collections, my tikis, other things over here. So um, you might want to check that out. You'll see what we look like and kind of get an idea for what we're talking about when we talk about our backdrops.
I did get a question in Georgia that I thought I would answer. Someone once said to me, "What do you do if you're home and you have like a Zoom meeting for work or something?" In full transparency, I point the camera the other way. I just want to be honest about that. I don't have all the. I don't like. I work for county government. The last thing I want to do is be like, "Whoa, what is he doing?" So,
Wow.
um, so I do.
Although I do have to say, you've been to my place several times, and
Yeah.
sometimes you do work. And one day you needed to do a meeting, and so I was like, "Yeah, just go down to my office, set up my desk, take your meeting." And whoever was at your meeting saw all of this in the background, and they asked you, "Are you in an antique shop?"
Yes, they did. They did. I said, "What? Where are you?" And I'm like, "Don't worry about where I'm at. None of your business." No, but I've been on golf courses before, and my employees have been like, "Are you on a golf course right now?" I'm like, "No,
No,
no."
this
But
is my lawn. Thank you very much.
that's right. That's right. But yeah, no, that's true. That's a true story. They were definitely. But for me, I'm always afraid that I have another camera that faces this way, so my face
Yeah,
faces
it's
this
probably
way,
probably a good idea.
and so it looks just like a boring closet. But no, for obviously for the show, and we have our numbers here. So if you watch us on YouTube, these numbers are our Instagram and Facebook numbers, and just heard recently from one of our teammates that that's how they found out about us was Facebook. So we're
And that's only one side of our Facebook, though. That's
yeah,
only
we
the
have
cycling men of leisure. We have cycling women of leisure, which is not represented up there. So that's not even
no.
the full picture. So,
If they would
side
let
note.
me combine them both together, I would just for blanks and giggles, but they won't let me. So all right. Well, listen, we've gone on long enough. I'm
Yes.
happy to move forward. We've got this show and two more, and we got some good stuff. I'm excited to do this with you. Let's finish it off. As I know that people are highly enjoying sending guesses and doing hours and hours of deep research. I'm sure it's not hours and hours, but
I hope not.
looking into it. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for the listener spotlight.
All right. This episode's listener spotlight has some fun clues. So here they are. This city's harbor has a unique distinction around the world. This city has influenced how large numbers of people travel around our country. You should appreciate that. It holds, or it was once held, it once held a very fiery title.
I already have a guess.
Okay, good. Just a second. If you visit this city, local tales suggest you're going to need a bigger boat. And my final hint is going to be this community can take a little credit for a major award that it has won in literature. So that last one is the city can take a little credit for some major award that it won in literature, that has been won in literature.
Do you want my guess?
Little credit, won in literature. Big award. Go ahead.
Boston, Massachusetts.
What?
Boston.
I thought you were going to say St. Louis.
No.
Well, dude.
Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay, we're going to have to go off script here because it's St. Louis.
Is it really?
No, I'm kidding. It's not really St. Louis. No, Boston, Massachusetts, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I like where you're going with that. That's good. I'm not going to tell you whether you're right or wrong, but
if I'm actually right, I mean, and please don't tell me because it'll really ruin it.
No, I'm not going to tell you.
But you mentioned something about like transportation, and I mean, Boston has some of the best transportations where the buses go one way and the trains go the other, and we talk about it a lot at like transit conferences and stuff. So that's where my guess comes from. Now, where you've thrown me is we're going to need a bigger boat. I believe comes from the movie Jaws, where he's like, "You're going to need a bigger boat," and so. But that's enough. I've said enough. But that's my guess, which is kind of fun because some people will write and say Adam's right. I'm like, yes, tell him Adam's right. So
is Adam ever right? He hasn't been right so far. We'll give him that.
I've been given some credit here and there, but
I'm gonna say, you haven't been right up to this point, but for a long time you were going with the single guess of St. Louis. So
out of humor.
that I know, and that kind of hampered you actually getting the real answer because I'm sure you knew Wexhaw last episode's answer. I'm sure you knew that.
Well, yeah, after Ed told me.
And then you still didn't know. That's the
Actually,
beauty of it. Adam does not know. I do
uh-uh.
not let him know what this is. I do not give him the hints ahead of time. He
You
finds
even
out when
lied
everybody
last
else
night.
finds out.
You
What's
even
that?
lied. Last night you lied. Because when I said to you, "Hey, we had a guest, we do some show notes," I mean, let's be honest, it's a show. We do production notes.
Did I lie?
Well, you said when I said about one of Ed's guesses, you're like, "Well, that couldn't even be because it didn't happen during that time."
What I said was about the Andrew Jackson thing that Andrew Jackson didn't really have anything to do with bringing the Republic of Texas into the United States.
Where's my censor
He
button?
acknowledged it.
Just kidding.
James K. Polk. Let's not
Nah,
give him, let's not overlook his contributions. But anyway,
Max would be happy that I
yeah,
that I that I
you
beat you.
censored me.
So,
All right, so there it is for next episode.
for the first time, I am seriously gonna be sad that I have to wait 2 weeks because I feel like my guess is pretty good. So,
Well,
but
for the
that
first
being
time, you actually have a legitimate guess that actually matches some of the hits.
exactly that. So
So, kudos to you. You're going to get partial credit if nothing else.
okay, fair enough. Well, listen, here's to the next 50. I would love to have
Yes.
another one of these celebration shows with the 100. And so, the last piece that I'd like to share before we close this show out, I'm grabbing something
Uh-oh.
here. You and I, upon starting this show, I got to cover my eyes because I got a camera that will pick up on my eyeballs. It's designed to focus that way. You and I picked up one of these right here. And if you can
Oh,
see,
yes.
it says Road Adventures with Cycling
Move it
Men
to
of
your
Leisure.
left.
It says Road Adventures of Cycling Men of
Okay.
Leisure.
Yep,
There we
there
go.
you go. Yep.
And it's engraved. And we started the show in 2022. And
Mm-hmm.
we said that if the show didn't go well, then we'd open it up. And I'm going to keep it sealed because show's going well. So
Joke.
hopefully
Well,
we
you
can.
know what? Yes, we got that directly from Woodford Reserve. And if you look back here, you can't really see it. It's covered up by the Ragbri license plate. I have a same bottle that's engraved the same way. So you leave yours on your shelf, I'll leave mine on my shelf, and we'll save it for another time because we said we would drink that if,
5 years.
Yep.
If the show went 5 years,
It,
we'd open it up.
right. Or if things just went pathetic and we threw in the towel, we could just crack it open and have a
Because
party.
there's nothing wrong with us going to Kentucky and getting another one. So
Well, that's true, but so 5 years. We've already went what, a year and a half, 2 years almost. So
I know.
cool. All
Well,
right.
thank you, buddy. I appreciate all the effort that you put into the listener spotlight, which gives me a chance to play with all my toys. So thank you so much. To all of our listeners, on a serious note, thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate you getting us where we are today.
Yes.
Without your support, we wouldn't have gone as far as we have, and have crazy things like jersey stores and T-shirt stores and swag and friends and people that we've known all over the United States and now international with our friends in Canada, and so
Hong
so
Kong.
thankful. And Hong Kong, if that's
Absolutely.
legal.
We thank all of you and certainly appreciate your support. And hopefully we can keep doing this for another few years. So,
Sounds good, buddy.
all right.
All right. And with that being said, as usual, I bet you today was a great day for a
Day
bike
for a
ride.
bike ride. Absolutely.